What birds you better not touch? Maybe some raptorial feathered creatures? Are those big? Possibly. They're also quite usual at sight birds that can do a considerable damage to health. Who are they and what's their power? You'll learn about that and much more in this episode. Did you know that birds not only come in predatory, grain-eating, large, and small, but also poisonous? Perhaps for some of you this information doesn't seem amazing, however the scientific world doesn't think so. Or rather, it didn't. Scientists used to be sure that poison is something about reptiles, amphibians, marine animals, but definitely not about birds. But then they found pitawee. Seemingly, this bird looks very beautiful. It has a variegated color, and in general it doesn't inspire danger. However, it's best not to touch it. This New Guinea bird is poisonous. It's poisonous not inside but outside, on the skin and feathers. And this venom is not simple, it's batrachotoxin, a powerful neurotoxin that can potentially lead to paralysis of the respiratory muscles of the victim. Given that the pitawee is poisonous from the outside, simply touching it will kill a person. Or would they? Okay, that's not actually the case. For a person, this bird doesn't pose a deadly danger. However, if the venom at touch penetrates in the blood through the mucous membranes, unpleasant poisoning can occur, and if you touch the bird and then put your hand to your lips, you'll go numb for a while. That's how scientists found out that the bird is poisonous. The exact same poisonous mechanisms in dart frogs. Like pitawee, they get their poison by eating special insects. And just like that, they're poisonous on the outside. Only they're much more toxic. Still, even knowing this, you better not touch a pitawee. This applies to another bird called the shrike thrush. It can be found in Australia, Indonesia, and New Guinea, along with the pitawee. Not much is known about these birds. They're not as colorful as pitawees. Their unremarkable olive coloration helps them hide in forest thickets. It's not good for scientists who have trouble studying the species, but it's even worse for local animals, which the shrike thrush can poison. The mechanism's the same, batrachotoxin on the skin and feathers. A little more is known about another poisonous bird, the blue-capped ifrit. It's a distant relative of the pitawee, a member of the passerine family. And no surprises here, again we have batrachotoxin, which is found on the skin and feathers of the bird. If you touch the ifrit, you can feel tingling and numbness. It's not very pleasant, but it's quite tolerable. It's much worse if you touch the bird with a wounded hand. The ifrit's venom is more effective on mucous membranes. Ifrits get their poison by eating poisonous bugs. If they get bored with the toxic menu, they can eat fruit. These birds are sedentary, they don't bother anyone, and that's good for everyone. In general, there are many different birds that are better not to touch. For example, geese fall into this category. They can be aggressive and do not tolerate strangers. Or some exotic birds, about which almost nothing is known. You better not touch them at all until scientists find out everything about them. There are many other animals that you should never touch, from cute, funny, and beautiful to creepy. Let's take a look at both. And let's begin, or rather continue the story with such a strange creature. To some people it may seem like a piece of wool, to others some plant, but in fact it's a caterpillar. Yes, I realize that hardly every second person who watches this episode touches all the caterpillars in a row on the street. After all, they are insects and many people can't stand them. But this caterpillar can still lure with its fluffy charms. Someone may want to pet it, even a little and slightly. Know this is a caterpillar's cunning plan, and you should not fall for it. But seriously, you really shouldn't touch this fluffy little guy. The hairy or fuzzy caterpillar is not as simple as it seems. It looks beautiful, but under its down there are sharp and dangerous thorns. This is a defense so that no one dares to touch it. These thorns are not only sharp but also poisonous and brittle. Therefore, in addition to a painful prick, a person who touched a furry insect will be left with several thorns in his fingers or palm. And this'll just be the beginning. After the injection, there's a throbbing pain, which spreads through the damaged limb and then throughout the body. This will be followed by nausea, broken bones, sweating, headache, and other unpleasant symptoms. Usually this is the end of it, and the pain goes away after a day. But if a person doesn't have a very strong immune system or any diseases, it can end in anaphylactic shock and death. Fox. Many people may not have known about the caterpillars, but everyone's familiar with this red beauty. The fox, though cunning, is a very cute animal. It belongs to the dog family, so many dog lovers may like it by default. Many people are sure that foxes do not pose a threat to humans, but only to small livestock or pets. But this is certainly not true. Let's not forget that the fox belongs to the canine, which means that it's a predator, and a wild one at that. It is, of course, not a wolf, but a fox can do harm. Secondly, foxes cannot be called social animals in the sense that they like people, so they do not really like our attention. But sometimes foxes can go out to people, reach their country house, or visit vacationers at a picnic. Someone may have a desire to feed a fox and right from the hands and then pet it, but it can turn out to be infected with rabies. Foxes are frequent carriers of this disease, and until the virus turns them into zombies, they can look quite normal, which makes them very dangerous. I would stay away from these animals. Least weasel. And these too, although it would seem that the weasel is a very cute animal, it's very small, weighs only a couple ounces, and doesn't look like someone who can hurt. Well, how can you resist and not touch such a cute thing somewhere in nature? Well, you should hold back because the weasel is not as simple as it may seem. First of all, it is a predator, and a voracious one at that. It feeds mainly on rodents, and it can get 40 mice a day. Weasels have a very fast metabolism and have to eat half their body weight every day. Because of this, they are perpetually hungry and incredibly aggressive. A weasel will not cause serious damage to your health purely because of its size, but it can get on your nerves and leave a couple of abrasions. And that's at best. At worst, it can also transmit rabies. These little ones often catch this virus and become its carriers. By the way, did you know that not everyone gets rabies? For example, amphibians are not afraid of this virus because they're cold-blooded. Nevertheless, you should also stay away from them. Not from all, of course, but you'd better not approach or at least not touch the fire salamander. This wonderful amphibian is characterized by an incredible pattern on its body, which makes it hard to confuse with anyone else. Still, I would recommend admiring this amphibian from afar because the salamander has parotid glands on its head. They produce a venom that's toxic to mammals, which means it's toxic to us too. In general, the venom of the fire salamander causes paralysis, convulsions, and arrhythmias, but these symptoms are not experienced by humans, but by enemies of the amphibian. For humans, the venom of the salamander does not pose such a serious danger, but contact with mucous membranes causes burning. Under severe stress, the salamander is able to spray venom at a short distance so that touching the amphibian or even being near the animal can turn into a couple of unpleasant hours in the company of burning, and hardly anyone needs it. Dolphin. What do we know about these creatures? Of course, dolphins are very intelligent. They're recognized as one of the smartest animals, not only in the ocean, but in the whole world. It's also known that dolphins like to smile. Although, in fact, this is not true. The constant smile on the face of dolphins is because they have such a jaw. In fact, it's their standard facial expression. Did you learn something new? Then here's a little more information. Touching dolphins is inadvisable. Yes, it's not the same as touching furry caterpillars or poisonous birds, but you'd better not do that. It's as luck would have it, a dolphin can react to a touch normally, but can suddenly bite a person. So it's good if it happens in the oceanarium, not in the ocean. After all, dolphins are large and predatory creatures, and although they're very intelligent, sometimes instincts can take over. And if a dolphin is stressed and touched, it can go berserk and maim a person, not only with its teeth but also with its muzzle, ramming into them at speed. These creatures are far from being as kind as is commonly believed. I would even say that they're crueler and more insidious. And you should not touch dolphins that are thrown ashore and certainly not reintroduce them to the water on their own. Scientists believe that this can only make things worse. Dolphins are sometimes so exhausted that they end up on the shore, and if you return them back to the sea, they will die there permanently. Sometimes such dolphins should first be assisted and then return to the sea. This is done by special workers. Also, dolphins stranded on the shore are under severe stress, and according to scientists, even the slightest fright from the touch of an inexperienced person can be fatal. While we're on the subject of sea creatures, why not continue? There are many other creatures in the seas and oceans that you should never touch, and one of them is called the crown of thorns starfish. It's a starfish with a biblical reference in its name. Even though starfish look beautiful, I think many people are well aware that they're not to be touched because they're prickly. Still, someone might get the idea of touching a starfish at least gently. It's better not to do such a thing, even in the case of such a handsome thing as the crown of thorns. Its body is covered with thorns, and they're not only sharp but also poisonous. Glands with toxins are located at the bases of the needles. The prick of the crown of thorns is very painful and can cause serious poisoning, accompanied by rash, nausea, and inflammation. In some cases, the prick can be paralyzing and fatal, so you should stay away from a biblical starfish. Okay, maybe most people wouldn't do something as stupid as touching a starfish, even a beautiful one. But with fish, it might work. I mean, fish, in our understanding, are not some creepy creatures, and it's quite possible to touch them, especially to such a fish as a red lionfish, which is characterized by an amazing appearance. After all, it's not every day you see such a colorful fish with unusual fins, right? But here it is about the same story with the furry caterpillar. Creature is beautiful outside but terrible inside, and in every sense of the word. It's in those beautiful fins that the fish has hidden sharp needles that are what? That's right, poisonous. The red lionfish prick causes very intense pain, so much that a person can pass out from pain shock. Specifically, it's not fatal, but after all, it is a fish, which means as an option it can prick the swimmer, and now to go to the bottom unconscious after the injection is deadly. As far as we know, the red lionfish has not killed anyone yet, but it's known that it's pricked many people, including especially curious people who wanted to touch it. Let's go back to land. Today we've already looked at whom you better not touch on land, but there are a few more of these animals. Beavers, for example. These creatures look quite cute, they have a funny face and no less funny protruding teeth. They're also not very large, which for some might be a reason to go up to them and pet them. Beavers don't like that. They don't like it at all when someone approaches them and can't stand others. It's not for nothing that they build dams. This is how they protect themselves from predators and hide from trouble. And they build them mostly out of wood, which they can easily chew. You see what I mean? A disgruntled beaver can attack a man and use its sharp and strong teeth, which he used to gnaw through a thick tree trunk a couple of hours ago. If the tree is so badly hurt, think about what can happen to a hand, foot, or even a finger. Unlike the same red lionfish, beavers have a history of sending people to the other side of the world. In addition, sometimes beavers have rabies, and this is another reason why you better stay away from them. Let them build their dams in peace. Snail. It's understandable why you shouldn't touch beavers, dolphins, or foxes. They can bite you. It's understandable why you should stay away from all kinds of prickly and poisonous creatures. You can get a dose of toxins. But what can snails do? They can't bite. Although they have a record number of teeth, up to 20 to 25,000, they're so tiny that they're absolutely harmless to us. And they're not poisonous at all. Nevertheless, contact with a snail can be fatal. The fact is that many snails are carriers of a huge number of parasites. For example, many snails in ponds are carriers of parasitic worms that infect with schistosomiasis. This disease can manifest itself either as fever, rash, or intoxication. Or in a more serious form, blood vessels become clogged where the parasites in their eggs accumulate, which can lead to varicose veins, cysts, and tumors. This scenario can happen if you touch a snail, don't wash your hands, and put them on your lips or tongue. And history also knows real cases when people licked snails or even swallowed them for fun or on a dare. As a result, they became paralyzed or disabled and eventually died. And let's go back to where we started, back to the birds. This time we'll look at the main feathered giant of the planet, the ostrich. These creatures are not at all belligerent and even cowardly. They try to avoid any conflict. But if it came to an argument, the ostrich most likely would try to respond to the offender and show that it's not so little. Given that the ostrich doesn't have the strongest nerves, any touch he may regard as aggression or attack, and therefore this giant is better not to stroke and do not touch at all. Ostriches are characterized by incredible strength. With such sizes, you simply cannot be weak. In addition, they run very fast and beat the offender with claws on their paws, which are characterized by strength and sharpness. In a state of panic and aggression, the ostrich is able to seriously injure or finish even a lion, let alone a man. That's about it. Write in the comments whose abilities surprised you more. Leave a like and subscribe to our channel.